Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Double Feature Picture Show, where every week we pick a pairing of films, we debate them, we talk about them, and we figure it out. I am your host, Dean, here with my dashingly debonair host, David. How you doing, David?
Oh, just beating the heat, and it's hot, dude. It's really hot. This podcast room is sweaty. I'm sweaty. It's just, it's hot.
It is very hot. I had to turn my AC off for this, and I regret that decision immediately.
Yeah. But we got movies to beat the heat.
We do.
So turn that AC up and turn the lights down. Get that nasty light bulb heat off you. And here we go. So what did we watch this week?
This week, the two films we watched were Darkman and Blade, the dynamic duo. We're here to figure out which is the best pre-MCU superhero movie. Would you like to tell everybody what the hell these movies are about?
Yeah, let's get right into the log lines. A traumatized scientist gets revenge on his assassins from the shadows to find a way back to his true love. A half-man, half-immortal vampire hunter breaks into a secret society of bloodsuckers to save humanity from extinction.
And that right there, that is the Darkman and Blade, the gist log line of the two. Which one would you like to start, Darkman or Blade?
Well, let's start with Darkman because I got some skin to pick with this movie.
What? This movie is great. All right.
Okay, so let's first explain it a little bit. Darkman is by Sam Raimi, post Evil Dead craze.
This movie came out in 1990.
Yeah, and this is kind of before he came back with other movies like the Spider-Man trilogy. And what is so interesting to me upon first sight with this movie is the casting, which is, I don't know, these are the last people I expected to be in a superhero movie, that's for sure.
What, you weren't a fan of seeing our star Liam Neeson as our superhero of the day here?
Well, it's like this is the thing about Liam Neeson in this movie is he's younger. I don't know exactly what age, partially because of the gripe I'm about to say, but Liam Neeson looks younger, but he sounds the same as he does now, and I feel like he's always sounded old.
I don't think Liam Neeson even looks younger, to be honest. I think Liam
His
Neeson to me
smoothed out, but
look, Liam Neeson to me has always looked like he's about to enter 40 or 50 his entire career.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
now he looks like, okay, he's probably about to enter into his 50s or something like that. In this movie, it looks like he's about to enter into his 50s. It's just he always looks
Liam
like
Neeson's
the old
70 years old.
What?
He's 68 years old.
That I'm impressed. Wait, he's 68? How? This movie came out in 1990.
At the time of release, he was 38.
What?
What does Liam Neeson look like when he was 20 years old?
I have no idea. Wait. Because this is another thing. I think this is Liam Neeson's first movie he filmed in America. Because he's English, right?
Scottish, I believe.
Yeah.
Apologize, Liam Neeson, for not knowing, because I know that's probably a point of contention. He's Irish. He's from Northern Ireland.
Oi, a man from my homeland. Oi. But yeah, so because I'm pretty sure this was his big American blockbuster movie thing he did to come over.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's look at his filmography for a second, because
I already have it up, and before Darkman, it's nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like what? Well, I don't know
He
what.
did Schindler's List like 3 years after this.
Which is an That's like that has to be the biggest pivot from one film to the other in history. To go from, and I know you will take offense to this, but to go from this to one of the greatest like Oscar bait films of all time.
I know, like to go from,
It's an
Schindler's List
interest
to this great Oscar performance in Darkman. I'll fight you on this.
Oscar performance, maybe for like special effects.
I'm telling you,
Maybe
okay.
for
Liam Neeson gives a great performance in this movie. He is tortured. He is both like longing for love. He is longing for revenge. He has to play all these weird,
he reminds me of
different
like
ranges.
a young golden retriever that hasn't grown into its paws yet. He's very lanky. He's very wobbly. His hands look too big for his body. It's kind of interesting because part of me halfway through, for those of you who don't know, Darkman is about a guy who has his skin burned off. Is basically what happens. But he was a scientist working on artificial skin. So his whole thing is that he uses the artificial skin he was working on in order to
make these perfect disguises.
Yeah, they're disguises, and he can make his own skin again. But then, like, for some reason, the skin, because it's made out of like actual skin cells, has a timeout on it, which is actually, in my opinion, a really good plot device this movie uses. But at the same time, I thought halfway through the movie that maybe that's the reason he looks and acts so weird. But then I remembered it's Sam Raimi and that he went to film school inside of a funhouse. And
Sam Raimi went to film school in an abandoned cabin in Tennessee. That was his film school.
I don't know, dude. It's just like the entire movie, Liam Neeson's is like, okay, because for starters, this movie has a weird dialogue problem where like not a whole lot of the dialogue feels normal. Like, you know how when you're watching a movie and the dialogue is just supposed to feel natural, though, albeit kind of on an elevated plateau because
it's supposed to be in service of the story.
Yeah,
people don't talk about random shit. They're talking about stuff that relates to the plot.
Well,
basically,
there's a lot of random shit being talked about in this movie. I feel like sometimes there are just moments where it's like, and it sucks because I can't pick on anything, so I kind of feel like I'm falling on my own sword here, but I don't know. There was like just the dialogue never felt quite right, and then on top of that, you have Liam Neeson running around with his like weird Phantom of the Opera, Hunchback of Notre Dame style cloaks on, and then is constantly going like, "No, I'm not crazy. No, I'm not crazy. I just nobody can look at me. I don't." And it's like, dude, what is?
I'm sorry for people who can't see this. David just kind of went over his microphone like Igor over the monster and just started scheming into it.
That's what it is. It's Igor, dude. And don't get me wrong, it's very committed. So it's like, love an actor that makes a choice and commits to it. That's what we can say. It's just that the whole time I was just picturing Liam Neeson in the voiceover booth, because this movie also is a lot of voiceover dialogue. It's was kind of normal for the time too, in like that early 90s, late 80s era where filmmaking was done for dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap. Totally.
Well, I think this is the prime era for like, we'll do it in post. Like right before special effects were a science, and then right after special effects started to become like a really ingrained part of the movie.
I get what you mean. Like, this was that midpoint between,
Oh yeah, and it'll become more apparent later, but I could just picture Liam Neeson in that voiceover booth having to make all those noises and then being like, what am I doing in America right now? I should be back home in Ireland doing something else. I don't know, but it's, I don't know. It's
well, let's try and break this down a little bit. Okay, let's break the plot down. Let's see where we're getting into contentions, because like this movie opens, I think, great. Where it's so
The
we have
opening
the
is
bad
iconic,
guys.
yeah.
So the bad guys show up to this warehouse and they're gonna have a drug deal thing, or they're gonna buy out somebody's warehouse or whatever.
Yeah, I think they're forcing him out of the warehouse. Him being Eddie Black. Um, and there's obviously that iconic shot of Eddie Black's fingers being cut off with the cigar cutter, which is
The
gruesome. I mean, admittedly,
Oh.
it's like I remember seeing this movie just in passing sometimes when I was a kid, and this was all that would be always what pops out. And
it's the cigar cutter. It's just it
yeah,
makes your skin crawl.
because that's one thing that this movie does really well is it gets specific with its pain, and it can make you really cringe.
I like how we see the cigar cutter, but when they're frisking him, because they frisk the bad guys before they go into the warehouse, and they throw out like guns, knives, brass knuckles, and a pair of nunchucks. And I'm like, who brings
nunchucks nonetheless?
Who brings nunchucks to a gunfight? And it's so weird. But what's even weirder is their henchman with the shotgun prosthetic leg.
Well, that's the plan is that basically the scene plays out that the bad guy, headed by Larry Drake,
as Robert G. Durant,
right,
the greatest villain in movie history.
He hides a gun in one of his henchman's wooden legs, and then the guy has to hop around, which is also made for a recurring gag in this movie. This movie has a lot of recurring gags, but that's kind of Raimi's style.
He's got a lot of shtick,
and it works. I mean, movies are about entertainment, and it's entertaining. I'll give him that. It's the shtick really helps. I don't know. It's like I'm just so fascinated with Sam Raimi's style because it works in the Evil Dead, right? Evil Dead and Army of Darkness are hugely iconic movies.
Yeah.
And then it's like for this, I think partially for me what it was is that this isn't a recognizable property from the get-go. So I'm thinking, oh, this is an origin story. This is a something I've never been introduced before. I'm going in with this serious opening. I'm like, oh, I'm getting more of a serious movie aside from this leg thing. And I think it speaks perfectly to the tone of the movie as an intro should, because a lot of this movie is it feels like it's supposed to be serious, but then there's this like confetti and streamers in it that just like I don't know. It'll make you eat your popcorn, that's for sure.
Yes, this is definitely a great movie if you just want to sit down and just watch some shit go down.
Yeah,
because that is what happened.
You're constantly looking at it going like, what in the hell am I watching? But then it's also making you laugh because of that. I don't know. And I feel like Raimi knows that. I feel like that's what, because there's other parts of that style that really come out and make this movie kick ass.
Oh yeah. There's a part later on in the film that final like climax fight scene is just full of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But like right after the opening, when we get introduced everything, like we get introduced all the characters after the opening. Westlake is the scientist, he's played by Liam Neeson. His girlfriend is Frances McDormand, she's Julie, and her boss, who's dealing with all these weird crazy like mobsters or whatever, and her boss sends the bad guys to beat up Liam Neeson, who's the scientist.
Well, they send him to look for that memorandum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the boss sends Robert Durant and his goons to go get the memorandum, and they destroy Liam Neeson in his lab.
Liam Neeson and his assistant, because that's the kind of thing that also got me about this is like Liam Neeson just kind of feels like he got caught in something he wasn't supposed to. It's not like normally stories like when we've already watched, that's a good example is Indiana Jones, where it's like he's the perfect character for that story. But this kind of it would kind of be as if like Indy got caught up just in some random archaeological dig, and there's not really anything huge going on, and they're like, why are you getting so serious about this? And it's like, because I I can't stand it. I need it.
I need the treasure.
Or maybe that's a bad example, but it's like I just don't feel like the flaw ends up becoming the fact that he was he was launched. I mean, when I say launched, I mean NASA lit the rockets underneath him and launched him from the exploding laboratory. Very convincing.
He does in fact go flying from, because we see it like in the lab. There's like they're working on it, and the windows are like 15 feet up on like this big ass wall, because it's like a warehouse, right?
Yeah,
like the lab kind of looks like a warehouse.
If you've ever been to downtown Los Angeles, it's near all of like the warehouses and like the Coke bottling plant that's down there is probably where they shot this. So it's one of those buildings that's a little taller than the normal 2-story building, and he flies across the street over Francis McDormand.
Actually, he not only does that, he flies from ground floor up 15 feet out the window, then across the street, across Francis McDormand, over the guardrail into the river, and that's where he lands. And this guy is still not dead.
I mean, yeah, no kidding that he's still not dead. I mean, like, I think that's one of the things where that was like the first time I really went like, what is happening here? Because by any standard, that kills anybody. And I know that this like superhero films aren't the standard for realistic storytelling, but the thing that especially got me was like Frances McDormand is standing there on the sidewalk and she watches the laboratory explode, already traumatizing. Then she watches her boyfriend who just proposed to her that morning, on fire, flying over her head like 20 feet in the air. Then she has to realize that he's dead, definitely dead.
110%. He is ex mortis. He is gone.
He's deceased, but she still doesn't seem that affected by it.
She's just kind of like, that's another thing. Okay, Frances McDormand is a fine actress. Okay.
Oh, she's incredible. Yeah.
Very good. Loved her in Fargo. But she plays like her boyfriend isn't dead, but like he like broke up with her kind of thing. Until Payne shows up at the cemetery like way later on in the movie. She basically just asks like, oh yeah, my boyfriend left me, and I'm just like kind of really really sad about it. Like that's how she plays it.
Yeah, and there's like a tender moment where she like collapses at the gravesite, and that's like a kind of a tropey way to play the grief, but at the same time there's not a whole lot of tears. There's not she has that kind of like deer in the headlights look that she has when she plays these kind of lighter characters.
Also, there's no one else at that funeral.
Yeah.
Did Peyton have like no family, no friends? It was just him.
Well, considering he still had that heavy Irish accent, yeah, that guy definitely was an immigrant, and his family might not even know that he is not only dead but now a skinless superhero.
I don't think he had a very thick Irish accent in this movie.
It was pretty noticeable. It was one of the things where I'm like, I don't know, it just felt odd.
You were like you're like, that English ain't no American English.
Yeah, well, it's just it's very noticeable. They don't cover it up very well. And I'm not saying that he has to. I mean, I could totally believe it's not a plot hole that a guy from Ireland would live in Los Angeles as a scientist.
Wait, was this supposed to be in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I mean the downtown skyline is constantly in the background.
I thought it was New York for like the last 20 years of my life.
No, that's definitely the Bank of America building or whatever it is in the background.
All right, I thought it was New York. But yeah.
I mean, it's never explicitly stated, but I could see why it's kind of like, I don't know.
In every movie, a big city is New York.
Yeah, but Frances McDormand, it's like this character reminds me of what she did for Burn After Reading, where it's like very one note emotion, very one facial expression, very anxious kind of person, but she's not. I feel like the character isn't supposed to be like that. Yeah, which isn't to say it's like it matters either which way, because it's interesting that I keep like having to explain away like this is just Darkman, this is just Sam Raimi. What do I expect? Listen, it's no three billboards. So
yeah.
um, so anyway, so that's when obviously after he's launched, United Airlines out of his laboratory.
After he has achieved flight,
Yeah.
everybody thinks he's dead.
Yeah, I mean, to talk about it, that it can't be a superhero movie without the superhero achieving flight. So check that box.
Box is checked.
Yeah, so after that, he's basically, I guess, they bury him, which will become a point later that I want to talk about.
Well, they bury like something of him because they couldn't find his body. Yeah,
but it's never really. I mean, I don't know how you could miss his body. It was literally like a highway flare flying through the air. But
he landed in the water. He drifted downriver.
Sure.
Life happens.
So, but that's and the other thing is like, he's brought to a lab and put on like this.
He's brought to like a hospital thing, right?
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a hospital, I think.
In a skyscraper, but whatever.
He's strapped into this weird like.
It's like a
wheel.
It's what it reminds me of is like when magicians do that magic trick where the person's on the spinning wheel and they throw the knives and they try to miss them.
Yes,
that's what it looks like.
That is exactly what it looks like.
But then it just makes you wonder, like, what benefit medically does that have?
No, what medical benefit does it have where the doctor comes in and shanks him in the leg to prove he can't feel pain, even though he's like completely unconscious?
It just seems like it goes against the Socratic oath, where it's like, or Hippocratic oath or whatever.
Yeah, like do no harm.
Yeah, where that seems like it would do some harm.
Yeah, because it's not like okay, I'll put it. It's not like a Bowie knife. It's not like a scalpel, but it's like a 3-inch long needle.
Yeah,
and not like a syringe. Like it's like a sewing needle that she sticks in this guy's leg.
Yeah, so at least if he can't feel it, he's gonna get tetanus.
Yeah, like it's gonna hurt.
I don't know.
Also, they explain away his superpower because this is a point. They explain away his superpower by basically cutting off the nerve impulses from his body to his brain.
Oh yeah,
so he can't feel pain.
That kind of made sense. I mean, to talk about one thing that actually kind of made sense is that I could believe that a doctor could sever something in your spine so that your nerve endings don't work, because that sounds like it happens in real life. The thing that then immediately didn't make sense is that he wakes up from his coma and jumps out the window.
Yeah, I don't know if he because he does go out the window, and I don't know how tall his building is. I assume I don't know how tall his building is, but I can't imagine he just was like,
it's at least 5 stories.
There might have been a fire escape.
I mean, I don't know of a lot of buildings in LA that have fire escapes. That's kind of a back east thing, but I feel anything. So I guess if like that pinprick doesn't hurt him, who knows what could? And superhero movie, we'll get over it.
Yeah, it's fine.
I don't know. So basically, that's where he then. So immediately he goes and tries to find his girlfriend, right? And
yeah. Which, lucky of all lucks, he sees her.
Happens to in just
the pouring rain.
Because part of me for a second was like, how the hell did he find her in LA at night? Happened to be walking down the street. Just like that's a huge coincidence. But then I'm like, well, I guess if you're patrolling the neighborhood where she is and you were her boyfriend, that makes sense.
It didn't even look like he was patrolling the neighborhood. It looked like he was just stumbling around, and he just like luckily saw her.
And I think that this is the perfect example of what I feel about this movie is there's constant like that makes sense, but the performance and the way they end up doing it and delivering it is like, I don't know if that's what they meant to do. I don't know.
It's really weird, but so he tries to go make contact with Julie, and then she's like, "Oh, you're some weird homeless guy because you're covered head to toe in bandages. You're sopping wet because it's raining, and you're wearing this weird black cloak.
Yeah.
So please leave it alone." And she leaves it. So then he like decides to seek revenge on the people who did this to him
Fair.
by rebuilding his laboratory in this abandoned warehouse in another part of town that's also like, okay, I don't know what this warehouse used to be, but it is like 4 miles long with like a bunch of pulleys, and it looks like, it's on the verge of like collapsing. But he builds this high-tech skin making laboratory in there.
Yeah, and it just happens to be hooked up with power, and he happens to be able to build a holographic display, and all the while he lights fire to this furnace where you're like, why do you need to light fire to the furnace? That doesn't look like it adds any value to your studies. I don't know. It's I think because for me, that's where the movie started to feel like a fever dream, and
That's where the movie felt like a fever dream. That's where it broke down for you.
It definitely started to get there, because that was the point where, you're watching a movie and you're kind of expecting things to keep evolving and keep revolving. So at some point, I'm like, okay, we're going to start getting some real action somewhere in here. But this is where the descent into Liam Neeson's like ego and super ego and his mind breaking apart into 1,000 different pieces because he has no skin, really, they pushed the gas pedal down, and started to get this was an interesting thing that happened, is that whenever he's in this warehouse, Sam Raimi tries to do these like flashback dream sequences that are like done with green screen and rotoscoping before it could be digitally touched up and rendered. So it's really just like a bunch of really weird imagery pasted on top of each other. And part of me is like, well, it definitely makes me feel like I'm in a fever dream, like I feel like he's going through. But another part of me is like, this is just kind of scaring me in like, why are you making me watch this kind of way?
It's really weird because like because it's supposed to be a thing where because he doesn't have any nerve endings anymore, he can't feel like pain anymore. Like his adrenal glands, so when he gets like really hyped or emotional or whatever, it's like unfiltered. His body doesn't feel the like physical response to stop it. So adrenaline is just raw. And I think that's what it's supposed to be. So when he's sad, he's not regular sad. He's like super sad. And when he's like,
the guy literally, his body was lit on fire and he flew through the air. That's like a once in a lifetime traumatic experience. I'm sure they can crack open anybody's noggin, but
yeah,
I don't know, dude. It's so the gist of the movie is that he ends up being able to, like we said, create his skin making technology. And he starts to use that in order to make disguises and infiltrate
Durant's like mafioso people to like basically make them turn on each other and like kill themselves off one by one kind of thing.
Yeah, and it becomes kind of episodic in the way that he like disguises himself and then kills people, which are the gruesome deaths that they go through. I mean, the first henchman dies by truck tire to the face when his head is sticking out of a manhole, which is
you mean Ted Raimi? Because that's Sam Raimi's brother that's being stuck up through the manhole.
I mean, what a favor to ask of your brother. It's like, hey, can you come play this guy that dies a horrible, gruesome death? And then he's like, okay, sure. What's the rate?
Yeah, that was probably the conversation.
Yeah.
No meme.
And then the next guy is the bald, fatso.
The low rent Bruce Willis.
Yeah, that's actually pretty close. Or the other guy I was thinking of is what's his face from Breaking Bad, his brother, the DEA agent.
Oh God, I know who you're talking about, but like, okay, if for everyone out there who has not seen this movie, I want you to imagine like Bruce Willis,
Dean Norris, that's who it is.
Yes, imagine Bruce Willis and Dean Norris had a baby, and this is like basically what that guy looked like. And also, no meme, I thought, like, I had to look it up. I thought this was like Bruce Willis in between roles where he just put on a bunch of weight and he just needed to like make a payment, because he looked just like Bruce Willis. It was
pretty close.
Weird.
Yeah. Or another guy he looked a lot like is Vincent D'Onofrio, because he looks like him from when he played Kingpin in Daredevil.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, he was like it's really weird. So, but whatever. Like, this guy
Yeah.
gets murdered by Durant because Darkman framed him for stealing like a bunch of money from Durant in like a pickup,
Yeah.
and made it look like he was going to leave the country with all the money. So they throw him out of like a 1,000-story building, right?
He's at least like 15 stories up. It's a long fall.
And he just like smashes on the taxi cab below and just dies immediately. And then the lady's screaming, "Oh my god!" And she turns around and she sees the exact same guy on the bus stop, but it's really Darkman, and he runs off, into the night.
Yeah, because that's another example of like, she basically, instead of saying anything like, "Oh my god, they're the same guy," or like they both have the same tattoo and happen to be bald and fat, she just ends up like screaming bloody murder for 5 minutes straight. And part of me, that's another moment where I was like, why is this feel not right? But then another part of me is like, I mean, if I saw a guy fall out of a window and then immediately saw him sitting on a bus bench next to his own dead body, I'd be pretty scared shitless too.
Naturalistic performances, name of the game in this movie.
Yeah. And it's odd how it's like, you can really make an argument that this movie is one of the, I mean, like you said, it kind of is an Oscar-worthy performance at the end of the day. If I guess all you have to do is posture the plot correctly for weird to look that like it was delivered correctly. I don't know.
I'm just saying, like, so don't get me wrong, this movie is weird. Like, there are parts of this movie that make no sense, but I will fight that Liam Neeson gives an amazing performance in this movie.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Well, to move the story right along, the best part of this movie comes obviously during the helicopter chase.
Oh, this is like the big climax thing, because
this is the helicopter chase to end all helicopter chases.
It's amazing. There's a grenade launcher.
There's a grenade launcher. There's two helicopters. A man hanging from one of the helicopters by a rope. There's the helicopter dangling the man into traffic. They fly. I mean, what was amazing to me is that they flew through the skyscrapers in LA, which is like, how much money and how many permits did you have to go through to get that done?
I'm wondering if they even had permits, or they were just like, dude, if we just run through this and bounce, we'll be fine, man. But
just like guerrilla filmmaking, but with two helicopters.
With three helicopters. They had to hit one to film it.
Yeah, technically. And on top of that, one of them was also a marked police helicopter. So it's like, I hope they didn't do guerrilla filmmaking, because it's like they could. Sam Raimi could have gotten a.
That's not a lot of trouble. That's prison time, but whatever.
It would be a hell of a stunt to pull. No kidding. But then it's like the whole helicopter chase ends with one of the helicopters crashing into a bridge, as you do to get rid of a helicopter. They can't go underground.
Yeah.
And another point where I was like, how did that happen? Is Durant survives the crash with only a few cuts and bruises?
But that's the thing. It's not Durant. It's pulls off face. It's Darkman. Da-na-na-na-na.
I just like.
Did you miss that part of the movie? That was literally the last. That was literally the last scene of the movie.
This is the gripe I have, right? It gets back to head honcho Colin Friels or Louis Strack Jr. in this movie, that the helicopter crash is what happened to Darkman, right? But somebody obviously had to have described the crash to him. They can't just be like, "Oh, the helicopter went down in the river." So
it closed down the 5 freeway and it's on the news. There's a burning helicopter.
So it's like, part of me is sitting there going, Durant's definitely dead. why would you then try and posture it as if he wasn't? As if that wasn't the most surefire death in this movie. No pun intended.
Now, to burst your bubble a little bit, so in the first movie, the Durant that we see in the next scene, that is Darkman in the mask,
Well,
right?
yeah, like I got that.
The sequel to this movie is Darkman 2, Return of Durant, because he lived. He survived the plane crash from the first movie, and he shows up in the sequel.
And I'm only going to guess that because his body was burned alive, he's trying to get Darkman's powers.
I'm gonna keep shaking my head no, because that is
Because
not.
that's what would
He
make
is
sense?
he looks totally fine. He no burns, no scars, no muss, no fuss. He is back in action to beat Darkman for putting him out of commission for so long. Not to get his skin technology, just to defeat him.
So I guess in Sam Raimi's world, the burn unit of a medical hospital really does their job well.
Oh, insanely well. Best medicine in the world.
Okay, fine. I mean, we're not gonna take the gripe. I do want to take one moment here before we wrap up Darkman to say that I had a couple lines from this movie that I really loved. One of them obviously was when Fatty Baldy fell out the window. Have a nice flight is one of the best action movie taglines ever.
It's true. So they find the fake airline tickets, I guess.
Yeah.
So they find the airline tickets and they're just like, well, puts it into his front pocket, taps him on the chest, have a nice flight. And then immediately at the end of that line, you see him soaring out the window to his immediate death.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is the quintessential cheesy like segue in all action movies, and it's just lovely.
Yeah, and then on top of the fact that that's like again another example of where it's like, wow, that plan is actually really clever that he plants the airline tickets in the bag and steals the money to make it look like he was going to fly with the money, wherever. But so another interesting line that I really enjoyed was, "Take the fucking elephant."
Oh God, when they're at the carnival.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sweet.
So,
So
Neeson
please.
takes McDormand to a carnival while he's just figured out and that he can do his skin, and they're trying to rekindle the relationship, but he's given the excuse that he has like therapy he has to go back to the hospital for. And the conflict is that she wants him to stay, he has to go, he thinks he's a freak.
And also that carnival, the whole carnival is nightmare fuel, by the way.
Yeah, again, Sam Raimi is paying homage to his roots in the Funhouse.
Sure.
And so he tries to win this like pink elephant for McDormand in order to, cliche like show my love and affection for you for taking you to a carnival where it's sticky and throwing a baseball at some bottles to knock them over, and when you a stuffed elephant, even though you're a 35-year-old woman.
Women love stuffed animals, I guess.
It's just like a weird custom to me, like why get an adult a stuffed animal as a showing of affection?
Because he lost the wedding ring in the fire? I don't know. It's just what you do.
I guess, but it's like anyway. So he wins the elephant for, but then like the carny is like an asshole, and it creates this, and it gets this fever dream going, and then
his weird adrenaline thing. Yeah,
yeah.
Before he snaps at her, he snaps that guy's fingers.
That too. Another point of where this movie does a really good job at making your skin crawl whenever somebody gets hurt. But Darkman, what an experience! What a ride! I think
this the first time you've seen it?
Yeah, it was the first time I've seen it, and I think it's time to get into the deleted scenes for this movie.
After you, sir, because you seem to have a lot of pent up aggression on this movie. What's your deleted scene?
I ended up enjoying it wholesale. I really did, but the first deleted scene obviously is more of a, because I love that scene, that intro. Is I'd like to see Eddie Black using an ATM now that all of his fingers are gone.
Oh God.
Well, I mean, what is that?
Just to see the tragedy of Eddie Black after that meetup.
Yeah. You can't really be a crime lord when you can't pull cash out the ATM. That's for sure.
I guess.
Alternatively, I want to see the scenes we don't get to see, where Liam Neeson has to constantly rub Neosporin all over his exposed flesh.
Oh yeah. Oh.
That can't be healthy.
We see him without his like bandages on and like the full extent of his scars and like how messed up he is a couple of times in this movie, like 2 or 3 times, and it is not good. Like there's bones exposed, like his flesh is like completely charred.
A lot of infections.
Yeah. He must take like peroxide baths every day.
Ugh.
Oh, that's makes your skin crawl.
It's tough to think about. What about you? So did you come up with anything?
I did. I had one, and this is because I wanted to see Robert Durant's greatest lawyer of all time get him off, because in the movie when Darkman frames Robert Durant for robbing a liquor store. You know, he's in full getup or whatever. He's holding the guy at gunpoint, walks up and he says like, "I'm Robert G. Durant," into the camera. He knows the camera's there, and then like robs the guy and leaves. I want to see the court scene with that, because the cops showed up. They must have like searched the house for the money, and they probably found his finger collection. Also, he has a collection of fingers of people he's probably killed or like tortured before.
At least taken their fingers, so they're not getting off easy.
Yeah, so they have video evidence that he's robbed a liquor store, or somebody who looks exactly like him, sounded exactly like him, and said his name, robbed a liquor store. They have a case of like fingers that he keeps prominently on his like in his study. This guy is probably a known criminal, like, and his lawyer not only got him off the same day. Got his ass out on bail same day. I want to see this Johnny Cochran dude just wipe the floor with this evidence. I just want to see what that looked like. Didn't
he just post bail for him?
He said to not worry about it.
That's true. He did just kind of storm out the courthouse.
He comes marching out and he's like, "Look, I post bail for you, don't worry about it." And he's like, "I'm not gonna worry about it because I'm gonna get the fuck out of here, blah blah blah." And I'm just like, bro, like, what was that? How did he even get bail?
Well, this doesn't strike me as a city has a, how should I put it, a clean police department. So I'm sure there were ways.
I guess, but I don't know. Like that, it just seems so weird that he was out the same day. But whatever. I'm just gonna keep harping on it that this man is the greatest lawyer of all time.
Yes, but it's the Sam Raimi logic.
It is.
Well, so that was Darkman. We're gonna get into Blade next, right after this quick break. We will be right back. Hey, Dean, did you hear about my new podcast?
Nah, fool, what is it?
I started a podcast where I review different colors of custom paint and how fast they dry.
Well, that's cool, but
Are you going to tune in?
I'll let you know what I think, but you should probably find something that doesn't suck and use Anchor.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free.
Free.
It's a super easy way to record, edit, and distribute your podcast to platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, all without having to overcomplicate the process. You can even make money with no minimum listenership.
Money.
You'll make plenty of money if you have a better idea for a podcast. You have an idea for a podcast that's more exciting than watching paint dry? Then you should head over to Anchor.
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
All right, so welcome back. Next up, we have Blade from 1998. This is the movie that made Wesley Snipes an American hero,
Yeah,
a star, a legend.
Wesley Snipes. I feel like if he would have rode this popularity a little bit more, he could be bigger than like Will Smith at this point.
He did ride this popularity great. He just didn't pay his taxes.
Yeah, I mean, you kind
But
of
he
have
should
to
have done.
do that.
Yeah,
It's kind of important.
I'm pretty sure that's the only reason he made Blade Trinity was to try and pay off some of that extra cash.
Yeah. Anyways, so this is that movie about vampires, but is
Yes.
also a superhero movie. And also, as I'm going to try and give an argument for, was the movie that The Matrix copied to a T.
To a T?
So, listen, I'm watching the movie, right? And I'm digging it. It's got good energy. Wes Snipes is great. The direction is great. The set design and the cinematography are like really well done. Even in this, I think I was probably watching an HD remake, but it still looks fantastic. But I start noticing things as I'm watching this movie. Pretty hard techno music, the gothic kind of getup, though common for the time.
I don't think it was that common, but okay.
Well, all the vampires are kind of like this rave style goth. They got the combat boots and the
skin tight leather pants.
Yeah, and then I noticed this glaring detail that there's a bullet time moment, and I'm starting to think The Matrix came out a year after this. So do the producers of Matrix have anything to say for themselves? I mean, this is a lot of evidence stacked against that movie is totally original.
Or the fact that Blade walks around in this black trench coat with a bunch of weapons underneath it, and he's just like kung fu fighting everywhere.
Yeah.
Is Wesley Snipes in the Matrix? Is Blade in the Matrix?
Well, and this is the other thing too, is this movie is a lot about, I mean, to borrow a little bit from the movie, but partially because it's a slang term now, but this movie kind of has this like red pill theme where, there's a world and then there's a hidden world underneath that's the truth, which is exactly what The Matrix is about. So I'm sitting there going like, this is really like really close to what that movie is. What is going on here? And albeit the main character of the movie, or this is another thing that I kind of got interested in, is that Wesley Snipes isn't really the main character of this movie.
Yeah, like he doesn't really go through a transfer. He doesn't go through a character arc really. Like he's the same basic Blade as he was at the beginning as the end.
Yeah, and I think it's just like he is this like Christ figure that we follow, but the real star of the movie, Karen, seems like the main character of the movie to me. I'm gonna say it flat out.
Well, I think she is the main character of the movie because when the movie starts, she is she's a blood doctor, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, she's a blood doctor. Then she gets, exposed to this vampire world, and then she's like now is like trying to fight, becoming into a vampire, and then at the end of it, she's like has this whole like renewed vision of the world and like this whole new purpose where now she's gonna help fight the vampires and like, try and cure vampirism for all these people.
Yeah.
But what we really need to understand is, so the vampire techno club at the beginning, is that the greatest opening fight scene of a film in cinema history.
Well, on top of the fact that there's that obligatory nightclub scene, is that it does it in such a an interestingly fresh way with the whole bloodbath. We're in the shoes of a guy who's just
cruising for ass,
and it becomes like this horrifying thing. It's a really cool. I don't know. This movie is really full of scenes that should be cliche, but they make kind of fresh and really badass. And this is I mean, from the get-go, this is an example of what the movie will do for the rest of this story, in that, I mean, there's an abandoned warehouse trope, but that's made fresh. There's I mean, what else is there? There's
I mean, I get
There's
it. There's
like
a lot of tropes in this movie.
there's a subway trope, the train fight trope, and that's common for these, like, kind of cyberpunkish kind of action movies.
Cityscape action
Yeah.
movies. Yeah.
But they're all done in really interesting ways that are kind of creative and fun and action packed. And the other thing too is that this movie does a thing with like recurring jokes, like the hand,
Oh my god.
but it's kind of self-aware of them in a way that makes them even more funny.
Yeah. Like, okay. I'll say this, I enjoyed Blade a lot. I thought it was a fun action movie, but with Quinn losing his hand all the time, I'm just gonna go out and say it. I didn't think Donald Logue was that funny in this movie.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, I think it's funny.
I mean,
because
I think he's a funny guy, but I don't think he was funny in this movie.
I think the reason it works for me is that it plays on one of the rules of the movie, right? And this movie does a really good job at sticking to its rules. Everything ends up making sense inside of the rules of what's going on in this world. And that was one of those things where it's like, you have to remember that vampires can regenerate, and it reminds you through this running joke that happens throughout the movie, and with the right character to play it off, because I think the way that this he looks like the ex-member of Alice in Chains or something.
I am curious about that. Like, everybody in this movie looks like they're supposed to be in a band.
And I think that's just kind of the direction. I mean, there's like a style to this movie that, like, of course, Wesley Snipes was going to be stylized in some way because he's the coolest guy who could have ever played this part. On top of the fact that then, in order to match that, I don't think it would be. I mean, the late '90s were already a really fashionable time for, like, everybody had a very particular way they fashioned themselves. But then on top of that, it's like, in order to match the energy of the villain, the main character, you have to make everybody else be just as into it. Because there's kind of also a sense of, like, hedonism and sinfulness that goes along with being a part of that vampire inner circle that the fashion kind of plays into.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about that time we dive head first. Let's talk about the plot of this movie a little bit.
Yes.
What there is of it.
Again, this movie also opens in a fever dream. We get to see Blade's mom on a gurney being wheeled into a hospital after she's seemingly been bit. She's pregnant, so they gotta forcibly induce the birth of Blade, who, because of this, will become a half man, half vampire immortal. And then the movie, it's weird because it's like it's super short, it's super quick, but that's all. It's kind of all you need because of the way they edited it. It's like really apparent that it's like, I don't know. And I feel like on most other movies, if somebody tried it, they would kind of fall flat in what they got across. But it was interesting how from the get-go I got like the whole, okay, we don't need to see a whole 3-minute scene of his mom like out. She's like walking home from work from a late night diner job, and then there's somebody following her in the night, and instead of like somebody who's gonna like abduct her, it's a vampire who's out trying to suck her blood, and then she's runs into a hospital. I'm like, we just need to see her wheeled in, and we need to see the fang scars on her neck, and then we got it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is interesting to take away is be efficient in how you tell your stories, because I mean, to be honest, I feel like, because, spoiler alert again, I mean, I don't think it's any thing we
This
have to
movie
point
is over
out.
20 years old.
Yeah, I mean, by this point you should see, you should know. But the mom obviously makes a comeback, and I feel like if we had seen more of her in the beginning, her comeback would it would make a lot less sense.
Yeah. But after that,
Yeah. So moving on.
after we talk, 20 minutes on a 3-second shot, we need to talk about the most bumping underground techno bar of the 1990s, the Vampire Bloodbath Bar. I need to know, what the actual fuck is this, and why does somebody call the cops when Blade shows up?
That's a good question. Part of me breaking down the logic there, right? I mean, the first thing I think about is how do these people just get? It's weird because it's kind of that secret society logic where it's well, how do they do this? But then you have to remember it's well, since they're literally in every government of the world and all this, and at one point in the movie they literally say they own the cops.
Yes.
I feel like it's just one of those things where it's the maybe condemned buildings are something that they own, and having a permit to be someplace is just an excuse to keep humans in a place.
The thing is, that wasn't a condemned building; it was like a meat processing plant.
Well, and then that's maybe a front for whatever is going on with them trying to herd the cattle that is humanity. I mean, it's kind of interesting how every point of the plot and the world gets so good at making even you, the viewer, question everything that's going on. Because when you have a movie that's about a conspiracy, you really need to make people believe in the conspiracy.
I guess I'm still that.
I mean, think
this
about
is just weird.
Yeah, but think about going back to the Matrix. Think about if we didn't fully believe that Neo wasn't just on drugs the whole time. It's at what point is it just some weird thing that's going on and maybe it's a prank, or is this just the new normal?
I'm also curious, is Blade a ninja?
Well, he's half vampire, so he has the super strength and the super speed that they have.
Okay, because he seems to be able to just appear and disappear at will.
Yeah, he's half vampire.
Being vampire
he's
just
the daywalker, dude. He can do anything. He's Wesley Snipes, bitch.
I guess. Okay, Wesley Snipes, you do you, man.
Yeah.
All right. So we have this great fucking club fight scene thing that goes on.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, see it. Then we go into the hospital where they're treating Quinn because he just got lit on fucking fire. And also, why the fuck didn't Blade just kill him in the club?
Well, I think that's what he
intended.
I feel like he wants to make an example out of him or something. I don't know. I thought that's what those silver stakes were for, is they were to kill him. But I know you probably have to behead the vampire or whatever the rule is.
Shoot him in the head or the heart, I think was what Blade said, but what have you.
Yeah. Then he definitely burned him alive. I mean, if that's not enough.
Also, I like how Quinn is on fire for probably, I don't know, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and he looks way worse than Liam Neeson did in Darkman.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's because Liam Neeson was not only flown through the air, but immediately doused in water.
He was exploded.
Yeah, but I mean, think about this. If Liam Neeson didn't hit the water, would he have survived?
I argue that he should have died in the explosion.
Yeah, I mean,
the guy's probably got shrapnel in him the size of a bread box.
Well, when you're a 6'4" or whatever Irishman, you can survive anything.
I guess.
Anyway, so basically it moves on from Dr. Karen and
Karen, medicine woman.
Yeah, and Blade. Blade shows up to the hospital after what's-his-face wakes up on the operating table and bites her ex-boyfriend in the neck. And she gets bit in the neck trying to fight him off. And Blade shows up and takes pity on her. also he yeets her over the alleyway between two buildings after the cops chased after him.
Okay, she should have been dead after that.
That, I would argue, definitely should have killed her, who was just immortal at that point. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
okay,
she landed on a tarp.
Yeah, but it's like a 40-foot drop on top of being flung 40 feet one way.
Also, the cops in this city got no chill.
They're stormtroopers.
They just,
yeah, they're just, they're there.
Dude, they roll up and these like New York cops just bust out like full auto, like dual wielding pistols and like are making a John Woo movie out of this hospital.
But then that's the other thing too, is the LA cops in Darkman just seem to casually be okay with going on a helicopter chase. So I don't know, maybe listen, movie cops are a different breed.
They're a different kind of stock character.
But so basically he brings her back to Blade brings her back to the warehouse where Chris Christopherson spends all of his time supposedly just doing metal shop work and,
making vampire hunting stuff.
Yeah, which is, I guess, one way to spend your time when you know that the world is full of blood-sucking predators.
Yeah, Whistler's a weird character because I get his purpose in the movie. He's supposed to be like the aged, wise, like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, he's the mentor character, and that's actually, I think this is the one way that the movie also does something really well is that the character relationships in this movie are really well done.
Yeah,
because while Dr. Karen, medicine woman, as we'll continue to call her now, she kind of gets me in a weird way where it's like she really takes, kind of like how Frances McDormand is so unassuming about Darkman's fate in Darkman. She's kind of just takes this whole idea of there being a vampire world that she's now been infected and will become a part of really well. And I know she's a woman of medicine. She's gone to school. She's an educated woman, but I feel like that still would kind of shake anybody's day up. And she takes it like,
that's kind of
shit.
Neat,
Yeah.
Because that's true. Like they're like, oh, also, so Whistler just walks up on her eyeballs, and he's just like, "Don't worry, I got this," and just injects her with 50 cc's of garlic. Would that kill you if I injected straight garlic butter into my veins?
Probably not garlic butter. The other thing that kind of got me is that in that mixture, there's also silver. That might kill you. I mean, I'm no medical expert, so
per se, yes.
It's not my area. It's not my forte. That's all I gotta say. So I'll let the movie get away with it. I can't think of a better plan. I mean, especially
I'm gonna
when
inject you with some buffalo nickels and some garlic butter from Fish Grill, and we're just gonna see if this cures vampirism.
I know. Chris Christopherson.
Because he's had to have known that it's like this could work. I've tried this before, long ago on the plains of Arizona where I killed vampires. That this ancient Native American mixture of garlic butter and buffalo head nickels will cure vampirism.
Yeah.
Well,
as a preemptive deleted scene, I'd love to see the scene where they're at the Domino's down the street and Chris Christopherson's order comes in and it's one medium pepperoni pizza and then like a 64 count of the butter garlic sauce.
Oh, because like they gotta stock up. Okay, they have a scene where Blade comes in and he buys the essence of garlic from like the herb shop or whatever with like some Rolexes, but that does not seem like enough. They have to get like the Domino's industrial like barrels of
they got a garlic guy. They got a garlic guy, definitely.
They got a garlic guy,
and he backs the truck into that warehouse every Wednesday because he kills a lot of vampires. And in order to do that, you're probably going to need a lot of garlic, a lot of silver. I want to know where they get all the silver too. Like, are you just going to pawn shops and?
Well, Blade is stealing like Rolexes and rings and like like mugging people, and he's just like, yo, this is how I fund this operation. He says stealing like a couple of watches, and I'm like, don't be wrong, they're probably expensive, but they're not paying rent on this giant warehouse for the electricity, the security system, gas for that gas guzzling charger you got, and like in the garlic and the gunpowder and all this other stuff. Like
I mean, I believe that they would be able to pay rent for that warehouse way before Darkman would be able to pay for rent and power in his warehouse, having no skin and no contacts within the real world. It's kind of
true.
I'm just saying, there's kind of a disconnect there for me.
I get you. I understand.
Yeah.
I just
I don't know. I mean, I guess to move it on, basically from there, Wes Snipes and Dr. Karen continue to try and infiltrate the vampire world, because there's a prophecy that will come afoot of the vampires trying to bring back the blood god, and at the center of it is Frost, Deacon Frost, who apparently also, I guess, might be Dark or Blade's dad? Question mark.
He is Blade's vampire daddy, because he was the vampire who bit Blade's mom. That's it. I don't think he's his like dad.
Nah, yeah, I guess that doesn't technically make a whole lot of sense.
Where is Blade's dad?
Good question. I mean,
because Whistler said he found him like just like living on the streets eating homeless people.
I mean, I guess I could believe that, because obviously if your pregnant wife is bit by a vampire and presumed dead, and maybe because, again, not to be political, but being a black woman in the medical system, maybe you might have been a little bit left out in the cold as far as what they were able to deal with.
Nah, fool. Like,
I'm just saying they would have found the dad, definitely. So I'm seeing something.
Oh yeah.
I'm seeing something to do where it's like maybe a vampire was like, this is the prophecy of the Daywalker, and we can't let the dad find out. Or, maybe the dad was also taken out by vampires. Who knows? But in a world where there's a secret society of vampires, I think there's a lot left to be unanswered.
Also, is this secret vampire society, is this the New World Order everybody keeps saying is running the world?
Yeah.
Because that's it?
Definitely.
Donald Trump is secretly being controlled by vampires?
Yeah. It's not Obama as a lizard, it's Obama as a vampire.
Wait, is Jeffrey Epstein a vampire?
I mean, it might be. I mean, as far as I know, Blackula was canon. That's that's where all this comes from.
Blackula, you heard it here first, everybody. Blackula was a historical film.
Yeah.
All right.
Dude.
So after they go and try and infiltrate the vampire world, like this cop comes in and he tries to like take Karen, right, to Deacon, and Blade just slaps the shit out of him. And I like how no one in the city, because there's people walking by, like it is a full city, no one seems to care that this large trench coated gun toting sword wielding black dude is slapping the shit out of a cop, looks like he's trying to like steal his car as he's just like slamming him on the back of the hood. No one seems to care. Blade pulls a gun out on him and like holds it to him, and no one notices. Everybody's just like, I guess it's Tuesday, and just keeps walking on by.
And I think my thing about it is that, and again, I think that the running theme is that I'm buying more into the theme of this film than you are, but the whole point of the movie obviously is to make a commentary on how like this is the what if humans were the livestock, and the vampires are obviously the answer for that. Vampires are controlling the secret society, and humans are only kept around so they have a source of food to keep their blood sucking thirst going.
I get it.
and what they say is like the correct way to be a bloodsucker, because they can do it for animals too. So I kind of like the way that the director makes other humans seem like animals. I mean, they're just like dumb animals.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I get the whole like metaphor where it's like humanity is supposed to be like the mindless cattle, where the cows and the sheep for these vampires, and we just kind of waltz through life while they're the ones pulling the strings.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, Blade is just casually walking down Fifth Avenue, going into herb shops, going into, I assume he goes to the liquor store dressed like that. He probably goes grocery shopping in a full trench coat with a samurai sword off his back. Do people just assume he's just...
Well, it's kind of the fashion for the
chilling?
time. I mean, this is peak Rammstein. This is peak Prodigy, Slipknot. If I'm
They
just looking at
they
him,
just
he's
think
like,
he's really into Slipknot. That's what it is.
yeah, it's like, are you going to Knotfest or what's up? I don't know if that. I mean, I don't know if that was around back then, but I'm sure it was pretty normal for what people looked like back then.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
on top of the fact that he's like the coolest black guy to ever live in this universe, so I'm sure people just looking at him, he's like, I need to make a shrine to that guy.
they just see this Adonis walking down the street.
Is Wes Snipes is cut in this movie. Like I don't know. It's so weird because that guy, like Wesley Snipes, doesn't seem like the type of guy that would fall so well into being a superhero, but he just takes it and runs with it.
Oh yeah, like Wesley Snipes is like I can't say he gives a. It's really weird but I don't know if Wesley Snipes is really acting in this movie. Like, I don't know how much emotional. Yeah, he's just being cool.
Which is, some of the best time. I mean, when you think about it, that's kind of what the deal is with movies like, Predator, for example. Those guys aren't really like acting. They're just trying to be badass, and that's sometimes all you can do for some movies.
I mean, granted, Predator is the greatest action movie of all time.
Yeah, and that's not to say too that Wesley Snipes still doesn't turn out some like legit acting later in the movie, because the third act of this movie gets really dark and really
incesty.
Yeah, there's some weird reverse Oedipus complex going on, because thankfully the main character does not seem into it, which was the part that still grounded it in not what the fuck universe. But so basically later in the movie, Deacon's plan is coming into fruition. He's going to bring the blood god back, and it's revealed that Blade's mom is still alive.
Yes.
Because she's half vampire, which does make sense. You don't really think about it at the time, but the whole movie they've been planting that once you're bit, you're going to come back as a vampire or die. It's a 50-50 chance. And obviously she lives. And I don't know why she doesn't think about the fact that her life was ruined and her son was taken from her as a result, which is kind of this glaring detail that is omitted from the fact that I think a mother would be much more attached to her child. But
I want to know how good the sex was with Deacon Frost to make her to not even care that her son was ripped away from her at birth.
Well, probably one visit to the bloodbath club, and then that was game over.
That's his strategy. He's just like, look, I know, I turned you into a vampire. I know your son got ripped away from you. I know that, I kind of basically killed you, but like, you got to see this club. It's bumping. Come on, I think you'll like it. Just take a bump of coke and follow me.
I feel like that's all it takes, but it also makes it the thing that's the weird side effect is that she seems really sexually into her own son, which is a choice. I mean,
I didn't get why she wanted to bone Blade.
Yeah, and I don't know if, because part of me was thinking, like, is that just like the theme they're running with? Is that vampires are like really hypersexual? But
I mean, I guess if they're like borderline immortal, because I don't think they're immortal. I don't think they're true blue immortal. I think they just age ridiculously slower than everybody else.
Yeah, I can't argue with that because I'm not a vampire expert, but I
I'm
would
not
believe
either.
that is the case. Yeah.
Yeah, because someone say, "Oh, I was born a vampire." Well, you obviously weren't born, Udo Kier, and like in your late 40s. You're born a kid and you probably grew up. So I guess they just age slower, I guess, or they age up to being like 15 or age up to being like a certain age and they just kind of stop. But like maybe she was like, maybe if you're like, oh, I live basically forever, like what else am I gonna do but bone?
I mean, that's definitely true.
I mean, like that. I think that's the theme of what you do when you become an immortal vampire. You go to techno clubs, you dance,
Just
do some
debauchery forever.
drugs, debauchery forever. Like that's the key to vampirism.
I don't know. Life probably gets pretty boring after 60 years, anyways. I feel like if you're still that young looking, it's just, what else are you gonna do?
That's your point. If you're like, if I still look like 20, 25 at like 60, I guess that's where I'm like, you know what? Time to go to Bone Town.
Yeah, I'm over all this sentimental stuff. Let's break into full debauchery. So obviously we get into the third act of the movie now. There's this whole showdown and ritual that Blade has to become a part of, then stop in an ancient temple in the middle of New York City.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, listen, I know it would probably be super cheesy if they had to like travel to Transylvania in order to, do all this stuff. But part of me is like, why not at least go up the Hudson River or something and go a little bit out of the way? Why does it convenient? Because I don't know. It's another moment where it's like, well, I mean, maybe that's because society has this whole new face on it. Maybe it's supposed to be that way because if it's the society secretly run by a vampire board of directors, is that just how they planned it? And that the basement of the New York Stock Exchange just happens to be where they built the site for this ancient ritual ground? Or I don't know.
Can you imagine being the janitor? Like you're the human janitor at the stock exchange, and they're just like, "Hey, Bill, so you're gonna go down to the basement. You're gonna go past like the weird door. You're gonna know which door is the weird door. You're gonna go in there. There's gonna be a lot of blood and bodies in there. Just
Yeah, it's
don't
gonna
worry.
smell, but we like that bad smell.
Yeah, that's
But
fine.
when you
Just
go
push
down
the
to the
bodies.
third
It's
floor
fine.
men's room, we don't like that bad smell. That's the one you're looking for.
Yeah." Could you imagine being the vampire janitor who has to clean up the bodies and all the random dead people? You're just like, it's a living,
Yeah, I wonder if there's like like just how there's because there's obviously this secret society of vampires. There's obviously this like sex cult counter movement of vampires. I wonder if there's like a liberal leaning movement of vampires that are like recycle the bodies. We need to save the planet.
Oh god. They're just like, look, man, I'm a vegan vampire. It's cool. Wait, David, are you a vegan vampire? You already revealed you had superpowers. You a vegan vampire?
I cannot confirm nor deny anything in this. No, I trust me. I'm probably the furthest thing. The only thing vampirish about me is that I'm pasty. I'm probably more Irish than I am vampire. I like Liam Neeson, dude. So if anything, I'm
Right.
closer to Darkman.
But that's got to be that is kind of weird though, because they do have that secret society thing. Because this is a point in the movie where there's that big secret society where it's all the old like vampires that run the world or whatever, and Deacon Frost is like leading the like kind of rebelling against them because he's trying to become the new blood god. But it's really weird because they all mean this weird spooky like boardroom that is probably under the stock exchange or in some high rise or it's just somewhere.
Something like this, yeah.
And then we have like the human bodyguards who just like are like protecting them, and they're just like, I just work for him, man. Like, don't worry.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, what did you think was going on, dude? I mean, like, look around. This is not some normal stuff.
Like that's the question. I'm like, okay, so you see an ad, a classified ad in like, the Times, and it just says private security for whatever Waylu Mutani, whatever like government, whatever like business. Do you just show up and they're just like, hey, so you're gonna be private security, you're gonna be working for Count Draculia over there. Don't worry, he's cool. You're gonna be wearing turtlenecks all the time, though. That's for your safety. And if this guy comes in, you'll know who he is. He's the one with the sword.
Yeah.
Shoot him. And you have full dental. Have fun with that.
Yeah.
See you at the company retreat. Next month. What is the job interview for that?
I don't know. It's that is one. I'll concede on that that's kind of a weird detail, but I don't know. I mean, like it's a cool. I mean, I can't argue with the fact that this is a cool fight scene to end the movie. I'll give
Oh
it
yeah,
that.
no, that fight scene is great.
Really good
There's-
choreography in this movie. But I mean, basically we get our ending. Deacon is defeated.
in some really questionable CGI work.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's when computers still looked like paperweights.
we remember those.
And then obviously there's this line at the end. If we're talking about favorite lines, this wasn't my favorite, but
Oh no,
just kind of like
it was the greatest line.
randomly planted in there. Quote, some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill, unquote.
Greatest line in cinema history. I have used that unironically in conversation with somebody. I was looked at like a fool.
What? It was such a weird place to put that random metaphor. It's like he could have looked into the camera and been like, some bitches are just trying to change a tire with a plantain, and like, what?
That was improv, by the way. That was improv by Wesley Snipes.
I'm not surprised that was not in the script.
That line is so good, though. It just encapsulates
I guess like
Deacon Frost always trying to ice skate uphill.
I guess so. I don't know. It felt like the right time for a one-liner, but the one-liner was just really out of left field.
You're just like, I wouldn't have pegged that one, but claps for that one.
Some motherfuckers are trying to hit a home run with an electric eel. It's like, what? I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
It's not a deleted scene, but let's see the behind-the-scenes footage of Wesley Snipes testing different lines on that moment. And the director, Stephen Norrington, is just like, okay, next one, dude. No, that's not. Next one. Ice skating. Okay, whatever.
Whatever. We've been here for 3 hours. I'm fucking done.
Yeah,
wrap.
That's a wrap. We're almost over union time. Let's go home. And then we get this weird falling action right afterward that is just kind of quick.
Where he's in Moscow now?
Yeah, and like a quick Moscow moment and just a quick Moscow mule, and then that cuts to black, and it's like, why?
Sequel bait?
Why?
I guess?
I can understand sequel bait.
Blade in Moscow?
It's a weird, like, normally with sequels, you're supposed to tease like who the next villain is going to be, right?
Yeah.
That's not what I got from that at all.
I think it's just to show that Blade is, his quest isn't over. It might never be over because it's the vampires that are as far-reaching as Moscow.
Yeah, but I think it
was kind of weird.
I think that was the other part of it too. That now that you mentioned that, is that I kind of expected, because of Blade's obvious dilemma that he still has to deal with. He still obviously is half immortal, half vampire, and now he has the taste for blood. But in order to reconcile with that, he's going to have to roam the earth fighting this vampire war. Now that the earth has been turned on its head. And part of me feels like there should be some very obvious, chip on your shoulder where he walks off into the dust wind and is like, I got to walk this path on my own. and Dr. Karen is just kind of left there to be like, well, now I have to figure out how to live in this world finally after riding on your coattails for so long. But instead we just get like this head nod, like, yep, this is some shit, and then they're just in Moscow, and then it cuts to black.
Okay,
So,
if you want a deleted scene, I just want to see Blade trying to talk to the NSA about why he needs to transport his sword, 15 pounds of garlic, a bunch of guns and knives on a plane to Moscow.
I'm going to be on Chopped Moscow.
On Chopped Moscow?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to be on the Food Network, and they're shooting in Moscow, and those are my secret ingredients. It's my cooking knife.
Which is a samurai sword?
Yeah, it's forge cut silver. You know.
Why do you need the 50 pounds of garlic maybe, but what's with the bin of buffalo nickels? Why do you need this much silver, sir?
It's an exchange rate. I don't know. You know? it's currency. Nobody understands it. And then he just does like a vampire chop to the neck, and then
he just vampire chops like the stewardess and just walks in.
Yeah.
Sits back and coach.
Yeah, Blade definitely sits coach. There's another deleted scene for you.
He's sitting coach next to like some fat guy and some like crying kid, and he's just sitting there like trying to read a book.
Yeah, I mean,
just trying to read The Secret.
When you pay for a warehouse plus an expensive modded out muscle car every month with the insurance on, is probably ungodly.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Could you imagine having to pay the dude? Could you imagine he has to take that to a mechanic?
Oh, it's going to be through the roof.
He's like, look, the transmission's out. I need you to check this. Also, be careful. There's a canister of live napalm underneath the engine block. Don't worry about it. Just work around it.
Why is there so much garlic butter in the coolant bay? Like, what did he do?
Instead of putting salt in the gas tank, it's garlic butter in the coolant. That's the key.
Yeah.
Also, does Blade just like Blade bathes in garlic butter, right? Like before he goes out, he's just like putting the deodorant on. It's just like raw garlic. Axe body. It's literally just Axe body spray. Just garlic up. Just he's done.
It's got has sweat blocking technology. You know, it does its job.
Everybody's just like, why does Blade smell like a fucking Italian restaurant all the time? Jesus Christ. It smells like a Domino's.
I don't know. I can't beat that as far as deleted scenes go. The only other thing I thought is that Blade deserves to be in Mortal Kombat at some point.
Is he not?
I don't know. I could be wrong, but I was pretty big into that series a long time ago, and I've never seen it, so but it's deserved. I mean, I feel like
he is a character from
like 1997 or 8 had to have been around when that was first coming out. I mean,
I think so. Good times.
Oh no, it was 1992, so it was probably out for a while at that point. But that's, I mean, just even more evidence as to why they would have benefited from having it in there, because
it's fucking Blade.
Yeah, that was after Mortal Kombat 4, before Mortal Kombat Gold. I mean, you definitely should have fit him in there at some point. But all
right.
So that is Blade. I think it's now time to wind down and get into what we liked better.
All right, now first let's figure out how these movies did. So, how much did you think Darkman cost to make?
It's getting harder and harder every podcast because these movies keep getting even more either expensive looking or ridiculous. And this is airing on the side of ridiculous because I was surprised at how much Fanboys was. I'm going to have to say, because of the helicopter chase, I'm shooting upwards of $20 million.
Ooh, okay, over 20 million? Man, you would be a terrible budgeter. This movie cost $16 million to make, It grossed $50 million. This movie was a huge profit. It was a hit.
That's so weird to think about. I mean, on top of the fact that it's weird to think about that $50 million is enough to justify a hit, though it's obviously that's a 30-year-old projection. It's still interesting to know that doubled its money and then some.
It's true.
But,
Speaking of films,
good for Sam Raimi because it got him to continue to be he would have been a prolific director anyways because of the Evil Dead franchise, but he's going places. He's doing it.
It's true. And for Blade, how much do you think this cost to make?
This one definitely upwards of $20 million.
All right, over 20 million. I mean, that's easy. That's easy because this cost 45 million.
And those sweet prime primitive special effects had to have been hours worth of work.
Oh yes, but how much did it make? $130 million.
So
this
and what
movie
was the
tripled it bought?
What was the budget in the first place?
45 million.
Oh, okay.
It cost 45 million and it grossed 130 million. It tripled its budget.
Well, good, because I mean, this movie legitimately, in my opinion, it was good. It was like certifiably, I would recommend this to people who aren't superhero fans. And
I guess that's the big thing. Which one of these would you recommend if you can only watch one?
Hands down, Blade. I mean, I think it's a lot more clear cut this week because Darkman's fun, but I feel like if you're not a superhero guy, it's going to be weird. It's like, all jokes aside, it is a weird movie. Sam Raimi is an acquired taste. It's a jarring movie that is fun, and if you were looking to have fun, then I'd totally say go for it. But ultimately, Blade actually ends up being a really good story, and it has a really good moral argument in the middle of it. The characters are motivated and have depth to them within this world. There's great action, I think, Blade is the one that I would roll with.
All right. Well, I will say this. I think I'd agree with you. If I had to recommend one of these two movies, I'd probably recommend Blade before Darkman. Like Darkman, it's a weird movie. I think the thing about Darkman that I like is like Liam Neeson's performance in it, and I'll keep saying it. I think it's really good. But like I think Blade overall is just like a better made film for the most part. Granted, they have like 8 years worth of effects and choreography and work, that they could have drawn on, and also a lot more money. But yeah, I think Blade is probably better. Like the action's very good across the board. The effects are, I'll say it, are better than Darkman's effects for a lot of it, minus the makeup. And I'll say the story is a lot tighter. Like the story makes a lot more sense if you're if you're just watching it. But I mean, if you're looking to just like chill out and watch just a weird superhero movie, because that's what Darkman, a weird superhero movie. If you're looking for a weird superhero movie, watch Darkman. If you're just looking to just casually watch a superhero movie, or you're just looking for one that's better, then Blade is the answer.
Yeah.
On this week of the Double Feature Picture Show.
Yeah, and that wraps us up for this episode and for this week. Thank you guys for watching and sticking along with us. So next week, as we go over the watch list, we're going to be watching 2 animated films for the first time. We'll be doing, let me see if I can get these titles exactly right. The Aqua Teen Hunger Force: movie film for theaters for DVD. And South Park: Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, the title for the longer title.
Yes, we're going to see which is the best adult animated film. And it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
All I'm saying is you better be ready for a deep exploration into 2 very political films.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go America. See you next week.
See you guys next week. See you again.
See you.